To another episode of Live Chat with James. I hope you're doing well on this beautiful evening. We are coming to you. We are actually doing a simultaneous live tonight. We're doing both YouTube and here on TikTok as well. So we're just seeing how that works. So bear with me as I jump between two screens looking back and forth. In any event, welcome to another episode of Live Chat with James. Welcome to the studios here in Vancouver, British Columbia at ProPics TV. Tonight we're going to take a look at some stories that are making headlines here in Surrey, around the world, and of course nationally in Canada as well. Breaking the headlines, of course, this weekend there is a big conference happening at McMaster University. The the inference of this is to look at the different aspects of the Air India bombing that happened in 1985. As we draw close to the 40th anniversary in June of this horrific attack, it is important for the future generations and current generations to know the truth behind the bombing that took place. Of course, we know that hundreds of lives were lost, both in terms of Canadians as well as international citizens that were aboard that flight. There was also a bomb that went off in Japan at an airport there that caused a death as well. Now, we will keep you up to date next week, reporting on the outcomes of the conference and some of the events that took place. So again, that will be next week that we will bring you updates on the Air India conference happening in Ontario at McMaster University this coming weekend. If you are out at the conference, I encourage you to share some of your thoughts with us in the comments. Moving on, it is being released through the media that there was an assassination of two Israeli embassy staff in Washington, D.C. This happened just outside the Jewish Museum and just steps away from the FBI's building there in D.C. At this time, the two young individuals that worked for the embassy in Washington are reportedly deceased as a result of the gunshots they suffered. With that also stating from information and sources representing the Israeli government, the two young adults were employees of the embassy, but also were in a relationship and were soon to be engaged. So again, a traumatic event and very sad news coming out of Washington. As it was stated, it happened just steps away from the FBI building, and apparently the Justice Department had sent Pam Bondi, who is the Attorney General, to the site. Unfortunately, I don't think that that's going to have any relevance on the investigation or the outcome of the prosecution as it moves forward through the court systems. I think that it may actually be a distraction. As we know, Pam Bondi is more about the photo ops and the optics of her position. As you know, it seems that that is her biggest concern in many different social media posts that she's posted since her appointment. Now, the Attorney General being at the scene is more an optics, as I said, image thing, and a display of unity with the Israelis. This again is apparently an act by a pro-Palestine activist who was apparently chanting pro-Palestine sentiments and Free Palestine chants within the jail after his arrest. At the time of the shooting, the individual was seen prior to that pacing back and forth near the museum and then approached the group as they came near. He pulled a gun and shot the individuals, killing two. As that is stated, the individual was a U.S. citizen, or at least resides in the U.S., and has been charged or arrested and will be charged with those two counts of murder. At this time, the Israeli government is calling it an assassination and acts of terrorism, and they assume and have noted their preference to the U.S. government to ensure that the investigation is swift, but also that it is very, very inclusive of all potential involvement of others who may have supported this individual. As stated, the individual was taken, into custody at the scene of the crime and remains in custody at this time. He did allude to the fact that he was guilty and also gave police and investigators the location where he discarded the weapon. So the weapon was also retrieved at the scene or near the scene of the crime. At this time, of course, we'll keep you up to date on this breaking story as more details emerge. But once again, the DC police as well as the FBI are investigating. This crime should be noted that with any suspicious activity in places such as the Jewish Museum or anywhere, it is important that if you see something, say something. It definitely was suspicious that the individual was pacing around outside this building, but again, there are human rights or at least civil rights violations that could have been encompassed had they approached the individual earlier, but they definitely could have been surveilling or been closer monitoring the situation if someone reported a suspicious person and suspicious activity outside of that museum. Excuse me. Sorry, folks, just finished another talk show here, so I just happen to be yawning as I am having another cup of coffee, so my apologies on that. In other news, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen are in the Senate, or at least were in the Senate, arguing where spirits got a little heated. And of course, Van Hollen did not hold back. He stated that he regrets voting for Rubio as a top diplomat, and to which, of course, the statement from Rubio in response was more of a brush-off, saying that he took it as a compliment. The Defense Department, oh my goodness. The Defense Department, though, with the lead of Pete Hegseth, of course, has stated that they have accepted the jumbo jet or the 737 Boeing plane from Qatar. Apparently, they have some conflicting information coming out where others are stating that it has not officially been accepted due to the fact that there are still talks going on between various legal departments and legal representatives. However, Pete Hegseth has stated that they have accepted it, which I think at the end of the day is just showing that it doesn't matter really what's said in the legal context or within the legal departments, that essentially at the end of the day, Trump is going to receive this plane. In other information coming out about this plane, though, it appears that Qatar did not actually approach the U.S. government originally and offer it as a gift. It actually was brought to light that certain individuals were searching for a temporary replacement for Air Force One because Trump was frustrated with the 2-year delay from this point that they'll receive the new Air Force One planes from Boeing. Boeing and U.S. representative or member of the staff were reaching out not only nationally but worldwide, seeing what planes could be utilized that were not being used in certain Boeing client list rosters, and seeing what viable options were available. When the Qatar plane came up as a viable option, or at least an option, maybe not viable, but as an option, Trump and his team jumped on it and made communication with Qatar inquiring about this plane. Now, this is contrary to Trump's earlier statements claiming that Qatar reached out to him, offered it as a gift. But again, we already know that we can't trust anything that comes out of Trump's mouth, let alone his administration. As the conflict or the controversy continues, Steve Witkoff was tasked with seeking out the viable options, and that was one of the options that came up. They followed through on it. Now, the bigger concern is that in 2 years' time, it is estimated that Boeing will be able to deliver the two new Air Force One jets. Now, with those Air Force One planes coming into rotation in 2 years, it is likely that the Qatar airline plane or the Qatari aircraft will be in service very minimally, if at all, between now and then. The big concern is that it's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars to retrofit this plane. They're going to have to essentially strip it down to its bare bones and then start over essentially from that point in order to install all of the technology, security, and other aspects of the plane that need to be modified for use as Air Force One. Given the major expense of the aircraft modifications, it could very easily be multiples in terms of the value of the plane itself. Some estimates report that the plane has been on the market looking to bring in about $250 million, whereas Trump is claiming that the plane is worth $400 million. I guess the value is based on what somebody's willing to pay, but also what somebody's willing to give Trump in return and what Trump can do for them. Now, this is a plain and simple example of corruption within the U.S. government and within the Trump administration, and of course, linking directly to Trump himself. This is no more or no less than a criminal bribe that should be investigated, and Trump should face impeachment over, as well as other representatives of the Trump administration. But we know that that is probably not likely to happen, as the Trump organization and the Trump government seem to be one of the same these days. Now, of course, we also know that there is an upcoming dinner that, again, certain people within the U.S. administration weren't even aware of, according to their statements in news media. And again, Marco Rubio being one of those. Now, this dinner is apparently going to be a very special, elite, and exclusive event for the top investors in Trump's meme coin and cryptocurrency. It's just plain and simple pay to play and just basically buying your way into access with the president, where even more exclusivity comes with even higher donations or purchases, whatever you want to call it, through his crypto scam. And at the end of the day, those people get a VIP tour of the White House and much more. So again, just paying for access to the President of the United States, given that the State Department and Marco Rubio don't seem to know much about this event. Of course, there are concerns about who is actually going to be in attendance. Are there going to be people with links or directly boycotted or sanctioned as oligarchs coming in from Russia or other governments? So again, there's a lot of corrupt practices that are being employed by the Trump administration. And again, the international community needs to stand up and demand that this not be an ongoing issue, that there be some steps to remedy this and to hold Trump accountable for his corrupt practices and that of Musk, along with others in the administration or associated with it. Now, of course, it also becomes a concern when you look at the U.S. involvement in the Five Eyes network, when you look at the involvement of the Trump government and administration's involvement in the UN, in NATO. All of these things are really at risk when you look at the bribery and the openness to bribery that it appears Trump is just welcoming at every turn. So again, we've got to keep a close eye on that. In terms of international news, though, we turn our eyes to Korea. Yes, North Korea has tried to launch a destroyer, a brand new one, just out of the box, as you could say. However, this 5,000-ton destroyer was being launched, and they screwed up and it got damaged. A brand new destroyer, and Kim Jong-un is calling out that it's a criminal action, that he's going to demand an investigation into it, and that everybody accountable, or everybody involved, is going to be accountable. Yeah, I don't know exactly what's going to happen to those individuals he feels are accountable for this mistake or this accident. But at the same time, keep in mind that they don't have a proper dry dock for launching boats and recovering boats that need to go into dry dock for retrofit, for repairs, for launch of new vessels, plain and simple. We don't know the extent of the damage, but apparently Kim Jong-un is demanding that the repairs be completed within a very short time frame. We're talking about having it fully repaired by June, mid-June, that is. Now, the other questions that the international community is bringing up is how effective are these new destroyers that Kim Jong-un is launching? They are questioning whether or not they even have engines and such in them. They think that it's more a display than it is actual reality of these destroyers being built and launched within such a short period of time. The last destroyer that was brought forward and put in the water was just in April of this year. So again, Kim Jong-un seems to be trying to beef up his naval fleet, which is probably the weakest link within the whole military complex of the North Korean government. So we'll watch and see how that plays out and what actually happens with this. But again, with the media lockdown in North Korea under Kim Jong-un, of course, we don't expect that we'll hear a whole lot in terms of the ability to get the details as to what happens to those individuals that he feels are responsible for this catastrophic event of embarrassment. And he's gone as far as to call that out exactly as a major embarrassment and failure for his country and his government. So again, we'll watch and see, because we know that he is not opposed to disappearing people who disappoint him. As for other news in the U.S., once again, we'll turn our eyes to the storms in the U.S. hitting many states. Up to 10 states are experiencing massive storms that are causing tornadoes and damaging winds. The president is ensuring that victims are getting essential emergency assistance and essential warnings such as... Oh shit, I'm sorry. No, he doesn't care about the victims, as he's too busy tweeting about and going on Truth Social, calling out things like Bruce Springsteen and Taylor Swift and, things that are important to the nation during times of struggle and times of destructive natural disasters. That's how he's spending his time. Once again, I mean, why would Trump want to actually acknowledge the storms and the catastrophic damage being reaped upon 10 of his states? He might have to give up some of the hundreds of millions of dollars that he plans on spending on his new airplane. Why would you want to give up hundreds of millions of dollars to disaster relief and disaster victims when you could actually just be retrofitting your Qatari airplane instead? Once again, a clear and disgusting display of non-concern by the U.S. government, by Donald Trump and his administration. And looking at it even further, I mean, the only thing that is more chaotic and destructive right now than these tornadoes and high winds, I would say, is FEMA itself. It is in utter chaos, and even if they had the resources to be able to move on to help the victims of these storms and tornadoes in the U.S., even if they had the resources, they probably are not equipped organizationally to actually help those victims. So again, just the people who are being impacted by these natural disasters being left out, just left out in the cold, essentially and literally. Let's take a look at the current news in sports. Yes, the Edmonton Oilers were going into the third period with a 2-goal lead over the Dallas Stars. Unfortunately for Edmonton, though, the Dallas Stars came into the third period with a one-man advantage, took complete control, taking full exercise of that advantage, and scored a goal, followed by 2 more very quickly within about 5 to 5.5 minutes. And at the end of the day, it was too much for the Oilers, and the Dallas Stars won Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals with a score of 6-3. Congratulations, Dallas, and we'll be watching to see how Edmonton fares in Game 2. We'll definitely keep you updated on that. Turning our head back to international news, the Israeli Defense Forces opened fire and sent warning shots towards a delegate of government officials who were visiting the West Bank on a sanctioned trip, officially sanctioned trip, and unfortunately, the group apparently or reportedly wandered off the approved route, and that caused for the Israeli forces to open warning shots against them. The Prime Minister here in Canada, Mark Carney, has made statements and also summoned the embassy representatives and such to Ottawa's, to either the Parliament or somewhere within Ottawa. They've been summoned to face questions and concerns of the Canadian government, as Canadians were involved in that delegation, but not solely the only ones that were there. Once again, Mark Carney called this unacceptable and that it should never have happened, and that he takes the safety and security of all Canadians seriously. And this again calls out the concerns that are the crisis happening within Israel, Gaza, the West Bank, and so many other areas of concern there. They've also come out to address the literal starvation of people by not being able to access the emergency rations or other aid that is being blocked by Israel, and not being allowed to get through to Palestine or other regions in which there is a great need. So once again, they are being called out by Canada and other nations to deal with this national or international aid emergency. Closer to home, though, folks, Canada Post and the Postal Workers Union are back at it, however, not in a good way. The Canada Post Corporation has put forward a proposal to the union to look at certain wage increases over the next 5 years, as well as backing down from changes to certain policies relating to retirement. Now, there's also the concern of bringing on part-time employees to help deliver the backload of parcels or the increased demand for parcel delivery, given the online surge of orders in sites such as eBay and Amazon and all of the others. So again, Canada Post looking for ways that they can financially look at a responsible increase in service, while also stating that by the use of full-time union employees for weekend deliveries, that definitely does not fit in their plan as a financially viable option. So we'll have to watch and see what happens. As it stands, the union did respond to the Canada Post Corporation proposal, stating that they were willing to withdraw the strike notice, or at least delay strike notice, for a 2-week period, giving them time to evaluate the full proposal and to come back with a response. To which Canada Post said no, that this has been ongoing for way too long. They want to get a deal done, and they are not willing to wait any longer. This, of course, after Canada Post workers had issued the strike notice that could take effect as of tomorrow. If the strike goes into effect, there will be limited postal service delivery. And other than that, you will want to look for alternatives and not rely on the post. Of course, in this day and age, a lot of people are switching to online notifications and email to receive, everything from invoices and bills to correspondence. So again, it's not as impactful for the day-to-day mail, but where it does have an impact are people who are still utilizing the paper financial services, such as checks coming from the government for support, for pensions and things like that. So again, it could be a big interruption to a lot of people. We'll keep our eyes on it. Hopefully within the 9th hour, we'll see, or the 11th hour, we'll see some type of resolution to the strike notice so we don't see Canada Post out on strike again for the second time in 6 months. But again, we'll keep our eyes on that, keep you updated on any of the movement within Canada Post Corporation or the Canada Post Employees Union. We'll keep you updated on that. Updates on the Jack and Lily Sullivan case in Nova Scotia, the two missing youngsters. Again, there is only an update that there are no updates. There are still no signs of the missing children in Nova Scotia. The case has taken on somewhat of a cult following, if you will, in the fact that people are glued to their social media and other forms of online communications, and not only for the good. There are many people who are out there on social media and propagating more rumors and mystery around it in order to gain clicks and followers. Unfortunately, this has not been a benefit to law enforcement and to the investigating teams. Instead, it's causing misinformation and disinformation to be spread. People calling in with tips that are from rumors they've heard online, again, that turn out to be false. It is not encouraged that you spread false rumors, but if you do have any direct knowledge or information, by all means, do contact the Nova Scotia RCMP. Now, little Lily, 6 years old, and Jack, 4 years old, have been missing for almost 3 weeks now, and there has been no sign of them as of this date and time, which is, of course, 1:45 a.m. here on May the 22nd, 2025. We hope that there would be, or we have been hoping for good news, for some kind of a miracle to come forward, but we have not yet seen that. So far, the Major Crimes Department and section of the RCMP, as well as other investigatory departments, have been involved all the way through. The search was scaled down, but has resumed in the community in which they've disappeared from. There are questions about the Amber Alert system and why that was not utilized at the beginning of the investigation when the children were reported missing. But again, it's a very intricate and balanced use of the Amber Alert system. The Amber Alert system is mostly effective and gains great results when it is parental abductions. Unfortunately, when it comes to stranger abductions with very little information, the Amber Alert system may have actually just caused more confusion and chaos than it would have been of a help. So again, there were decisions that were made, there were criteria that were evaluated, and it did not meet the necessities or the terms in which a generalized Amber Alert would have been issued. There were reports out to the local media, out through social media, between the community and such, but again, there wasn't an Amber Alert issued. We did do a breakdown and a further deep dive into the Canadian Amber Alert system last week, so if you look at our archives, you can actually find out more about the Amber Alert system in Canada, the high success rate when it is used, but also understanding why in many cases it is not used. So again, at this time, we will be keeping an eye on the issue of Jack and Lily Sullivan and these missing children out of Nova Scotia. A lot of people have made a lot of speculations. There are everybody from tarot card readers and fortune tellers to you name it, and they are online spilling all kinds of crap. But again, out of respect for the family, out of respect for the community, and out of respect for the integrity of the search and the investigation, please do not continue to spread misinformation or just crazy theories that have no basis in truth, fiction, or fact, or reality. So again, be careful about that. But again, if you do come across information that is potentially of assistance, the RCMP would love to get that information. Please reach out to the Nova Scotia RCMP, and you can find that information online. Moving on, in the NBA, a Canadian has been named MVP. This is huge news, as the last time it happened, and the only other time it happened was when Steve Nash won the title twice, actually, in 2005 and 2006. So this time it has been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I apologize if I mispronounced the name. He is a player with Oklahoma, with the Oklahoma Thunder. Congratulations to him, to his team, and the future potential that holds to inspire Canadian basketball players and the next generation to pick up the ball and play some hoops. Once again, it is a huge announcement, given that, again, it's only the second Canadian to ever receive the NBA MVP title. And as I said, he is a legend in the making, but also an inspiration to all of the young basketball players out there. Once again, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is from Hamilton, Ontario, and congratulations to him for a well-deserved recognition. The Surrey Hospital, in local news, received a $1 million gift from the estate of Joan and Len Lease, a couple that resided in the local community and were, of course, treated in the local hospital. After their passing, they left an estate, and part of that estate was a gift to the Surrey Hospital, and that is being used to help with cancer diagnostics. With this, the $1 million estate gift allowed the Surrey Hospital to purchase a new endoscopic ultrasound machine and to start that program. This will help with earlier detection and intervention when it comes to certain types of cancer, and especially when it comes to gastrointestinal cancer detection and treatment. So again, their legacy will live on through hopefully saving many more lives in the Surrey community. In addition to, of course, purchasing the ultrasound machine, it'll go a long way to help fund the use and the diagnostics potential of that equipment. At this time, from what we understand, it will be in use 2 to 3 times a week, or days per week, not times per week, but days per week. And as maybe future funding and need arises and increases, then hopefully it can be used a lot more if it doesn't indeed show promising results that are needed in the community. Once again, Surrey Hospital, congratulations on the purchase of the new equipment and the new ability to help those suffering with GI-related cancers. In closing tonight, we'll take a look at the cyber attack against the BC Lottery Corporation that happened last year. It was one of surprise. It was actually a minor youth who was arrested in February of this year who was found to be responsible for that cyber attack. Of course, at the time, the customers of the BC Lottery Corporation online, known as playnow.com, they were concerned about the cyber attack and the data breach that brought forward. However, it does appear that all steps were taken in a very rapid manner by the cyber security team at the BC Lottery Corporation, who handled that along with law enforcement and followed through with the investigation, resulting in the arrest of this one male minor. At this time, it appears that the minor and the BC Lottery Corporation and the criminal justice system have decided that the best route of action and the best course of action will be, instead of a big trial and incarceration, they're going to look at the restorative justice program available through the Juvenile Justice Act here in Canada. So hopefully he has learned a lesson and he can take his hacking skills and actually get into cybersecurity to help protect others from future attacks. Of course, we're not naming the individual out of respect for his privacy as protected under the Youth Offenders Act here in Canada. Once again, you have been watching Live Chat with James here on ProPics TV, and we thank you for tuning in. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to keep up to date on new videos and new posts as they come out, and also because it helps us to build the channel and increase our presence in the algorithms. Once again, it is May the 22nd, 2025. We thank you for tuning in and watching us here on ProPics TV from Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm James Kuzno. Stay safe, everyone.